Okay, hi Andrew. So in this part, I'm just going to summarize part one and give you some visuals, kind of talk you through what we're looking at, because you have a phenomenal foundation, so we can really build onto all the great stuff you've already done. So in terms of setup, I thought you had a really good setup. I think, the biggest thing with setup is just feeling athletic, balanced, centered, just kind of ready to move. It's like any athletic position. If I'm gonna take a snap at quarterback or field a ground ball or play defense in basketball, my body wants to feel still but ready to move. It's still but it's alive. The quarterback might seem still, but he's athletic and dynamic at the same time. So that's kind of what we want to feel at setup in golf too. So I think there might be an opportunity for you to kind of engage your legs a little more, maybe turn your right foot out a little more, because I'll talk about how that's going to help your pivot. Turn the right foot out, but just get to where you feel like the knees aren't pinched in, they're just balanced, kind of down the middle of your feet, athletic, ready to move. So that was the first thing with setup. Also, I think, your hands are pretty much in the middle of your body with that hybrid on that one video. I think we could get the hands maybe just a little slightly more forward so that the left arm through the left wrist through the shaft are more of a sort of a straight line. Nicholas talked about this like a closing door kind of thing, so he could get strength in this left arm. If this is out of alignment, it's a look that isn't quite as strong. So if you look at Rory's setup, you'll see his hands are just slightly forward. This left arm's in a nice strong position. Strong, like striking strong, not strong like strong grip, but just athletic, dynamic, ready to move. Now, the backswing, my thought is that, and I read your notes, you've worked with some great instructors. I like what you're doing in terms of your hands and arms, but I want to show you how the body can sort of support that better. Because when you wind up to the top of your backswing, you notice that this right glute kind of almost went more underneath you, or it got under you this way. So the glute never really pushed back. So it caused your pelvis, I'll come closer, it caused your pelvis to get more under you this way and closer to the ball, to the top of your backswing. Versus, how does this hip, because if I set up here, my belt's level to the horizon if I stand here, but then when I bend at the waist, there's tilt to my pelvis. So yours is good at setup, but then it kind of gets under you to the top of the backswing. I'd like to see it more where I bend from the hips here, and then it's a little more angled as you push it back, as you pivot and create leverage back into this right hip. Because notice now there's angle to my pelvis, ribs, and shoulders, and they match the direction I'm gonna move in the downswing. So, in terms of drills that I'd like you to do to help wind up your body better, because it's like I'm drawing up a punch. This right hip is going straight back, this right rib's going straight back, so that my body can kind of, in Nicholas's words, sort of turn around my spine or wind up around my spine. But the glute has to get back if we're ever going to have a chance to keep it back through impact. So you trying to keep your right hip back without it actually getting back to the top of the backswing is going to be a tough feel for you. So the feelings would be, really simple body movement, club on your shoulders, centered, balanced, and then winding up to the top, feeling centered, and then back to center. So sets of 10, just winding into this right hip. If you have an opportunity, you can get, up next to a wall and maybe get like a fist length away from the wall, and then feel like my pivot pushes that right glute into the wall. Because what you saw in Mac's picture was he pivots so well to the top of the backswing, he's winding up leverage so that this right hip actually gets higher than the left hip on this side of the arc. because it's like a half pipe in snowboarding. When I'm on this side of the arc, I want things to be wound up this way, then level out, then go up the other side of the half pipe. So the golf swing's kind of working in that same sort of configuration. So if we don't ever get this right hip loaded back and angled properly this way, then it's going to set everything up to go like this a little bit. And then it's going to feel like you have to speed your arms up to get back in front, but the body's the thing that's out of position. So sets of 10 against a wall, winding up the right hip, staying centered. I'm not totally straightening out my back leg. My back leg will be straighter than it was at the top of the, or at setup, but I'm pushing back and there's a little life in this right knee still. The right foot being slightly turned out at setup helps support this movement to the top of the backswing. So, drawing up the right hip with a club on your shoulders. Also, a good way to feel this is 2 fists in front of you, and just envision, like, for whatever reason someone's down here and I wanted to deliver a punch in that direction. Now this isn't how your arm's going to move in the swing, but this is what it's going to feel like in your body. Is we draw up this punch here, notice where my right hip goes and how my ribs get loaded. So my ribs are getting loaded while I'm pushing this right hip back to create leverage up here to support the club up above me. The body, the right side of the body, has to be structured properly. I'll do it from down the line view. Drawing up a punch. See, this is still angled here. This matches this, where yours was under here, which made your shoulder plane flatter. So it's going to cause the hips to have the ability to run out in front of you and the right side to bend too much. If I get this deeper, more centered, then now everything's set up to go this way for a split second before it levels out. That's how we keep the right side high, and that's how we get what Malaska wanted you to do in terms of getting the club back in front of you. Okay, so we've got rod on the shoulders to feel this pivot. We've got drawn up a punch to feel this pivot in your right leg, right glute, right side of the ribs, right pec, right shoulder, basically the entire right side of the body. Then I talked about how Mac, there was a feeling of because he's up high on this side of the half pipe in the backswing, he's gonna drop into the wave. Or if he's surfing, he's dropping in. There's a feeling of refinding balance in the body because the right side wound up and now it's got to level back out. And where do I want it to level back out at is the bottom of my arc. So when I showed you the buttons on my shirt and my belt buckle being my upper and lower center, where was Max at impact? He wound up the right hip back this way, then he moved down and leveled out, but his center moved to the bottom of the arc at this position in the downswing. So where I see you, because your pelvis is out of position at the top of the backswing, your hips start to bump out in front and slide, which tips your upper center back. So you're kind of in this configuration here. The left shoulder rising helps the right side bend and the pelvis run out in front this way. So the more your body's in this configuration, the more you try to straighten your straighten your release out like Malaska wants, the more you're going to fat it back here. We've got to get the right side of the body wound up properly, and then I'm dropping into this wave to level out. So now my sternum and my belt buckle are stacked on top of each other. My body's level at this point in the downswing, and now from here, you know, centrifugal force is going to take the club around, and then everything will be able to turn through together versus hips already out in front, upper body tips back. Then you have to throw your hands at it. Hands move independently for a little while, body stalls out, and then it kind of comes up late. So ways to feel this. That punch I drew up, deliver it. So it's almost like I'm winding up, punching, winding up, punching, But notice where I'm at. All I did was basically play defense and move over a little bit, because I need my centers to level out right at the bottom of the arc. So right here. So it's really only, my centers are behind the ball slightly at setup. They move in front of the ball slightly. They needed to move down an inch, left an inch, because the bottom of the swing arc is an inch lower and an inch in front of the ball. That's all we did. Then from there, everything turns and thrusts up to the finish. So, in summary, for right now, I want you to feel with the club on your shoulders, getting into this right hip, get up against a wall, then also drawing up this punch, staying centered, getting this right hip up into the wall, getting loaded back. You can also feel it with a golf club in your hands. Just, how do I get this right hip to pivot properly so that I can get this loaded there? Then, downswing, punch. It's like leveling out right here. So wind up, punch, wind up, punch, wind up, punch. Your stomach will feel engaged, you'll feel level, you'll feel balanced. The same way you drop into a wave, the same way you carve on a wakeboard, the same way you carve on a snowboard. Leveling out here. Then when the arms fire, this right shoulder will stay higher. You've got hips out in front of you, upper body tipped back, right side super bent. We need right side loaded, leveled out, arms fire, right side stays higher, right hip, right rib, right shoulder can all move together to the finish and get you back in sequence. The last thing I'll share is, when you were wearing the blue shirt, your release looked a little bit like the arms were pulled over here a little bit. The checkpoint for what you're feeling at the finish of those little shots, I've got the club right here in front of me. It's a little left because my body's a little bit more rotated, but it's pretty much right in front of me. Your hands were a little bit thrown and released over here. And that's because the right side was bent, which causes the right hand to throw. And when the right hand throws, it pulls your body up this way, versus right side loaded, attack the ground, club fires in front, everything turns together through here, then the wrist folded on the eye line. So if you have any follow-up questions, please reach out. I appreciate you sending these, and I hope this helps. Keep me posted, and I'm happy to do phone conversations or any sort of follow-up to kind of talk more about this. But I think if we can get the right side of your body wound up better, we can get you leveling out better, and then the things you're trying to do with your arms will make a lot more sense because your body will support it better. I appreciate it. Thank you.